Hi everyone, welcome. Glad you're here, and today I want to talk about tuning vocals, and the tendency I'm hearing more and more is the overabundant perfecting of vocals that are really harming the overall emotional content of a lead vocal performance, and just the way it hits a listener, what it does for your heart, the emotionality that comes across. As a producer, when I'm producing, for a lot of producers, it's easy to get caught up in just, okay, now I'm going to tune the vocals. And you go in there and you methodically go through every line, every syllable, and you tune everything and correct your vocals. And that to me tends to sterilize things, much like when recording drums and then you're ready to tweak the timing a bit on drums. You start at the top of a drum performance and you go all the way through the end and you just straighten everything to a grid, which has, in my opinion, no emotion in it left anymore. Unless you're doing pop and hip hop and things that have to be more squared off and exact. Grids have no emotion, in my opinion. So the same holds true for vocals. When I'm producing, or let's just talk about when I'm mixing, I like to set it up so that I'm not making tuning vocals an event. I also say that tuning should be part of the production part of a project or a song when you're producing a song. But a lot of times, let's say an artist didn't have time to tune the vocal, or they weren't comfortable tuning a vocal, and they say, hey, could you handle the vocal tuning for me? I think it needs some tuning. And you go, okay, sure. And now you're faced with that. So here's what I do to not make it a thing. I will take a vocal track and I'll duplicate it, so I always have the original vocal track intact, untouched. And I will take that track and I will put my tuning software of choice, let's say for me Melodyne at the moment. I'll put Melodyne on that and I will bus that to a print track, to an audio track. So it's the vocal track with Melodyne on it. I will float that from the mix bus and I will send that via bus to another audio track to record. I'll put that track on input. As I'm mixing, if something jumps out that catches my ear, I'll just go ahead and just grab that word or that line, or I will grab a verse and just do some quick tweaking without making it a vent out of it, without knowing in my mind, now I'm going to tune a vocal. Because I find that when you do that and you make that an event, you start perfecting to a point of sterilization. And it takes the vibe and the character and the believability and the listenability of a track over days and months and years away from the listener. It just becomes bland and plastic and soulless. So I will always be prepared. I'll run Melodyne from the start of a song. So I'll run Melodyne from the start of a song all the way through, so it's in the Melodyne program, and I'll just put it on bypass, on input, or maybe not on input, because I also have that duplicate of the vocal, and anything I need, I'll just immediately go, oh, I don't like that word, I'm going to jump in there and sharpen that a bit or flatten that a bit, and I'll just go in and grab it. That way, I'm only grabbing key things in a lead vocal that show that a lead singer was in control of their performance and they're in the zone and they're happening. I don't need every single nuance within a vocal to be perfected and sterilized. There are key moments, key notes, key phrases, key things that allow a singer to be enjoyed in a way that's big league, that's happening, that's platinum, that's believable, that's emotional, that's deep. You get what I'm saying? So stop over-tuning your vocals. When they're overcooked to that point, it becomes meaningless. And a lot of people use that technique of over-sterilization, over-gridding, over-tuning in so much of what they do that basically the record, in my opinion, has been rendered unlistenable. And you lose all the character. It kind of, years ago in the 90s, before Autotune came out, what I would do is I was struggling with lead vocals and I didn't want to go to harmonizer and just, grab the knob and just try and make things happen and do it that way. What I would do is I created a box when I was mixing on SSLs, and I created a box where I could basically go under the ribbon connectors, under the patch bay, and it would tap in the voltage control of a bucket of 8. And I would have that bucket of 8, I would pick like 2 faders and convert that voltage control into a MIDI output. So what I would do is I would assign, let's say, fader 25 to the pitch parameter of a harmonizer H3000, and I would apply the second fader for timing. Because I was dealing with analog tape, I would use tape as an early way of getting the vocal. What was it, 55 milliseconds, or I don't know what it was, maybe a little more, between the sync head and the playback mix head. So I would basically tap a vocal and have it come out of the Studer machine off the sync head, and that second fader would be controlling the pocket and the timing of a lead vocal, which is really great because if I wanted to have a vocal be a little bit earlier, I'd pull down the fader, be earlier. If I wanted to lay back, I would go up on the fader, and same with the one next to it on fader 25. If I want to go sharper in pitch, I would push up the fader. If I want to go flatter, I'd pull down the fader, and I could just grab them anytime I wanted, which was wonderful. It would be like playing the piano instead of making it a thing. I wouldn't have to go through a whole vocal. I would just grab what I want. And not only to get a lead vocal more in time and more in tune, sometimes I'd want to give it a little more soul, give it some grease. So I'd lay back the vocal. I would flatten a lead vocal just to give it more vibe and more soul in certain things. And you'd play with those 2 parameters. And that's one thing I want to bring up with this whole tuning process I'm talking about. Don't just use vocal tuning to perfect a vocal, to get the pitch exactly right, to get the timing exactly right. You want to have maximum emotionality in whatever the lyric calls for, whatever the sentiment of a lyric is, and the vibe of the singer's voice and the emotion. Mess with it in the opposite way. Give it more grease, give it more soul, give it more vibe. And that can really help your lead vocal performances quite a lot. So I guess that's all I want to talk about today. Thanks for checking this out. Best success with your vocal tuning, and I'll see you the next time. Okay, cheers.